What if I told you there's a way to predict the next big company that will add Bitcoin to its balance sheet? Let's mine deep. In 2020, MicroStrategy shook up the corporate world by converting a significant portion of their cash reserves into Bitcoin. Months later, they took out billions in debt and dilution to buy more Bitcoin. But instead of it tanking the stock like many fiat economists predicted, their company is now worth 10 times what it was before they purchased any Bitcoin. And now, many other companies like Semler Scientific and Metaplanet are working on doing the exact same play. But what do all these companies have in common besides the Bitcoin obsession? First off, they're all founder-led. Semler Scientific, one of the newest doing the MicroStrategy play, literally has the founder in the title of the company. Founder-led companies being first to leap at bold new strategy makes sense. Generally, they have a high level of voting shares, and the company is their baby. They aren't as controlled by activist investors or private equity firms as some other public companies, where founders might not even be working at the company or their CEO is for hire. Second, these companies are generally all cash flow positive. This is important for a few reasons. One, because it warrants the need for strategic reserve in the first place. You probably shouldn't be stacking sats if your company has never turned a profit. Two, because profitability gives you better access to capital markets. MicroStrategy's entire play is to borrow fiat to buy Bitcoin, but nobody would think about lending to them if there wasn't a core business that could use cash flows to pay for the interest on the debt. Third, all of these companies have a similar story of the market telling them that their cash balances were useless. MicroStrategy and Semler Scientific were both profitable companies trading at much lower than average price to earnings ratios compared to their peers, which is the stock market's not so subtle way of saying spend your money on something. So why should you care? The biggest companies in the stock market all have a problem. They have too much cash. Apple alone is sitting on over $100 billion, all depreciating anywhere between 2 to 7% in purchasing power per year. That's why many of these companies have been issuing buybacks, accumulating and lowering their share count to return value to their current shareholder base. This buyback trick won't work forever. Since 2022, the US has actually started to tax companies for their buybacks. If there's one thing we've learned about taxes like this, they only go up over time. But you know what's cooler than gobbling up your own shares? Buying and holding the scarcest money on earth on behalf of your shareholders. They may not realize it, and even some of the investors in companies like MicroStrategy are still skeptical about it. But tying your company's profit to the best performing asset on earth might prove to be a winning strategy for everybody one day. The only question left is, how do these companies protect their sats from a government who wants a piece of the Bitcoin revolution? Don't miss Eric Semler backstage.
What convinced you to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet?
I think that there's just such a compelling argument for companies like ours who are not getting credit for all the cash we have on our balance sheet to find a better way to use it where there's a real opportunity to grow it through investment and also as a valuable store of value. I have to say, I got to give Michael Saylor a ton of credit, like a lot of people, because his call for all these companies, these small, mid-sized companies in the public markets that are not getting a fair valuation for their businesses and could increase their value by buying Bitcoin, made a ton of sense to me. And it resonated with our board. And so we listened to him carefully, and what he said made a lot of sense. Obviously, his example of taking a company like his in 4 years from 500 million in market value to 35 billion was just one of the most impressive things I've seen as an investor in the stock market over 25 years. He's truly one of the legends of value creation. I put him in the same category as Steve Jobs and Jensen Huang in terms of just having that vision to maximize shareholder value. And that's something I'm very focused on and have been my entire career.
Speaking of Michael Saylor, how do we change their minds or educate them properly to start viewing Bitcoin and take Bitcoin seriously?
It's it's a great question. I think a big step has been this institutionalization wave, the Bitcoin ETFs, Larry Fink at BlackRock, all of the stuff that's happening, the Wisconsin Pension Fund buying the ETFs and buying Bitcoin, same with some of the Michigan pension funds I understand are getting involved. So I think as that increases, it's unavoidable. It's inevitable. Young people, old people, middle-aged people are going to realize that this makes a lot of sense. And I think a critical factor there is once you make the plunge and once you really start to kind of see how it makes sense, for me it was really comparing it to the value of gold and see how well it has acted as a safe haven during some crises lately that has made me kind of make that plunge. But once you make it, and as I'm sure you know, it's just there's all these reaffirming data points that hit you like every day, like wow, what I'm doing makes sense. And then every day it's just reinforced by all of the issues around the world that we see, not just with currency, but with global instability. And so that to me is how it's going to unfold. I think in general, I've watched this over my career with wireless and internet adoption and so forth. Mega trends tend to, investors, individual people underestimate the durability and longevity of mega trends.
And you mentioned megatrends. What are megatrends for those at home?
A megatrend is just something that is kind of a transformative trend that kind of takes over people's everyday lives, like wireless. When people went from using landline phones to cellular phones, that was a mega trend. When people started using the internet and then used broadband, that was a mega trend. And so what happens is it starts off with obviously these the pioneers, the people who are willing to take a chance and adopt it, and then it just spreads. But we always kind of underestimate how broadly it's going to spread. And so right now, like Bitcoin maybe attracts 50 million people in the United States. I mean, that's a lot. It seems like a lot, but just think about it could go up by sixfold, and we'll see. But I think that Bitcoin is in that category of megatrends.
Speaking of that, do you view it more as an investment or as a currency? Would it compete with the dollar, or what's your perspective? Will we start using Bitcoin more as a currency, medium of exchange, or will it be just an asset?
I think it's both. I think it's a store of value because it's very similar to gold in the sense that it has this reliable kind of safe haven aspect to it, and gold is so much more valued so much more highly in the market. Gold has a value of 16 trillion and Bitcoin has a little more than $1 trillion. That disparity in value makes it a great investment. So it's a great store of value because it's for all the reasons we know, similar to gold, but also as an investment, it's great because it could be worth as much as gold or more. And gold is worth 16 times more than Bitcoin. So you can imagine there's a lot of upside in the value of Bitcoin.
What do you think is the end game for a Bitcoin treasury strategy?
For our company, we would like to use our cash to buy more Bitcoin. So our goal right now is just to generate as much cash as we can to buy more Bitcoin. And we've said that in our filings. And so right now we're just waiting for the SEC to approve our filing to issue to do a shelf offering, or an at-the-market offering it's called, where we can sell shares to generate cash to buy more Bitcoin. That's one of the purposes that we mentioned in our filing. And so that's kind of our goal is to just accumulate as much Bitcoin as we possibly can.